Hello everyone, and welcome to the first quarter EFMP Facebook event for families. Thanks for joining us on the EFMP Assignments Facebook page. I am Kim Schuler, and I am the Chief of EFMP Assignment Policy. On my left, I have Lieutenant Colonel Lisa Hoyt from our medical component, and then we have Sandra Nichols from our family support. And we're going to have the two of you just talk a little bit about what both of you do, and then we're going to roll right into the questions that we've received from all of you. Thank you so much again for communicating what it is that you want a little bit more information on, what's frustrating you, because that's exactly what we need in order to be able to provide you specialized content that meets you exactly where you are. So, Lisa, we'll get started with you. And if you want to go ahead, it's all yours.
Sure. Like she said, I'm Lieutenant Colonel Lisa Hoyt. I'm the program manager for the Air Force Exceptional Family Members Program. Our primary role is to identify, enroll, disenroll, and provide medical screening for family members who are looking to accompany their sponsor for an accompanied tour. And so our role essentially is to make sure that the services your family needs are going to be available at the gaining location.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. And I'm Sandra Nichols out of AFPC, Airmen and Family Readiness Operations. And so our office provides operational oversight to all of the Airmen and Family Readiness Centers around the Air Force, to include EFMP Family Support. And our EFMP Family Support coordinators provide non-medical case management through information and referral on community resources to meet families' needs. We also do family assessments, we write services plans, we advocate for families, and you'll find out a whole lot more.
Absolutely. And of course, on the personnel side, from the assignments perspective, we're looking at the Q code that you mentioned, and we're actually the ones who put it into the personnel system once the medical side lets us know, or we take it out once they also let us know. But we are also the ones who help processing orders and things along those lines. So we are the counterpart, and those are our local counterparts for you out there in the field. Whether you're an airman enrolled in the program, or you're a spouse, or you're a caregiver, or you're a leader or peer. We're super glad that you're here today, and we're looking forward to having a conversation. So it doesn't stop with the questions that we have here already submitted, so keep them coming all day long. We're standing by to be able to answer questions live. So please feel free to keep adding on to our stack of questions, because the more the better. It definitely helps us be able to know what's going on in the field, and helps us be able to build better content for you too. So we appreciate it. So we'll dive right in. All right, ladies, ready?
Yep.
Okay. All right, we're pros at this. Okay, we're going to start with, this one I think is probably a little more in your lane, Colonel Hoyt. What base can I go to as an EFMP family?
That's a great question. We get that one quite a lot, actually. So we don't have EFMP bases.
Right.
So technically, being enrolled in EFMP will not prevent you from ever PCSing. So the process really is that after your spouse is selected for a PCS and there's a Q code placed on the sponsor, that's going to trigger a medical screening from the medical treatment facility. And from there, they're going to find out what conditions there are and what services need to be addressed at the gaining location. And so the information we get back from the gaining location will be provided to you, and it's really information only, so that you can discuss this with your family and determine if that assignment makes sense for you, or if you would like to choose one of the other options available to the sponsor that we'll get into in a little bit.
Absolutely. Okay, kind of in line with that same question. If I am Q coded, can I go to an overseas assignment? I'll take the first part of that one if you want to take the second part of that one.
Okay, sure.
So, like Colonel Hoyt mentioned, it doesn't prevent any type of assignment. So, Q code is not considered during the assignment selection process. We consider all airmen based on eligibility criteria. So if you're a senior airman looking to go to a senior airman billet, that's at Mildenhall, that's what you're applying for. The folks that are here at AFPC selecting those assignments are looking at exactly that. So they're not considering whether or not you're enrolled in EFMP, nor should they, because we don't want them discriminating in any way, shape, fashion, or form, nor do we want them limiting any career development opportunities for you, whether that's on the officer side or the enlisted side. So we're very, very clear about that and make sure that we keep all opportunities open to all airmen. Now, if we run into an issue, or you run into an issue where you've gotten selected for the assignment and then you go through the family member travel screening process, which is different from EFMP, and it's once you get your assignment, you go and you are processing the paperwork to see if there's services available. That's done through Colonel Hoyt and her teams out in the field with the special needs coordinators and their flight. So I'm going to let you talk a little bit about that and then what happens there, and I'll touch back on the assignment side, ma'am.
Sure. So to answer your question, yes, you can still apply for an overseas assignment because, like we said before, a Q code does not prohibit you from any PCS. But it's important to remember, if you are assigned to an OCONUS base and by chance that gaining location doesn't have the services available, we will likely give a non-travel recommendation to the family. And so with that being said, that's going to come with some hardships should you decide to bring your family against a non-travel recommendation, if that makes sense. So in terms of some of those limitations that really are important for you and the sponsor to know and understand in terms of command sponsorship overseas, that involves there's no provision for your visas or passports. There is
The SOFA protection?
Yes, the SOFA protection,
Absolutely.
thank you, as well as space available
Absolutely.
status at your MTF, as well as the school system.
Yes.
So I think the biggest one that might hurt most families in the end is that you won't receive the funding to and
Right.
from your CONUS and OCONUS location if there's any situations that arise if you travel against non-travel recommendation. That's not to say if a new condition arrives, that doesn't apply, but that's if you went over there knowing you had a condition.
And a lot of times we see families that will say they get on travel not recommended or a TNR, whatever we want to call it, and say, oh, you know what, it'll be fine. And then they'll get over to the overseas location and it's way worse, the situation,
Yeah.
because of the financial impacts or because of the fact that there's not a medical TDY funding associated with that. So that's all out of pocket. Since they have a family member over there who's not command sponsored. So that is a large burden to consider up front and ahead of time. But that is definitely one that we want to make sure that our families are briefed on and make sure that they are fully aware. So your local special needs coordinator and your military personnel section both have all of the information on exactly what those are. And if they don't, then definitely let us know. You've got that send message feature right there on our Facebook page, and you can hit that, and we can definitely provide that back to you too as well, so that you're making an educated decision before you choose which option it is that you want to do, because that's the last thing we want is somebody to be either miscounseled or making an election under a false assumption. So that's definitely one of those things. Yes, ma'am.
Let me just add in there for those families who are non-command sponsored, and we do not encourage you to take your family if they are not command
Yes,
sponsored.
correct.
However, at the Airmen and Family Readiness Center, because we do have 99 coordinators at 78 installations throughout the Air Force, if you happen to be in that situation, you can go into the Airmen and Family Readiness Center and take advantage of the resources that are available to you. And so we would just recommend, calling over first, finding out what those services are, and maybe setting up an appointment with the EFMP Family Support Coordinator at your location.
Well, that's good to know. Absolutely.
And I think on the tail end, we should say that at the end of the day, that assignment belongs to the member. So
Right.
until he or she decides to either cancel the assignment or ask for a reassignment
Right.
or take the assignment, that's really up to the sponsor to make that decision. None of us can make that decision for them.
Absolutely, and that's one of the great things technically about the Air Force is it's voluntary. So any change to an assignment that's based on EFMP is done, like you mentioned, it's done at the behest of the airmen. And so we definitely recommend getting familiar with the processes. And if you have questions, contact us and let us know along the way, because we are able to tailor that communication back specifically for your family's situation to be able to provide that. We do encourage you to go local and talk to your local POCs, but sometimes situations can cross lines, and are crazy and out there and have a lot of different complexities to it. So we're able to talk through those and help local resources get trained up too as well if we need to definitely go down that route. So that's what we're here for, is to make sure everybody's on the same page. So also on that same page, if we do have a family that goes over with a non-command sponsored dependent, we have to be careful. We always put that caveat out there. The only time in the assignments world that we will actually look at reassigning the airman back is if there's a life-threatening situation for that family member. So keeping in mind that they've made the election to put that family member over there, that is a risk that is assumed as well. So a grim thing to think about, but that is one of the things that we do have to put out there each time we talk about it. So, okay, on to the next one. It says, I would like to know the bases available to me. I received a message before getting my EFMP assignment, so we're talking about a specific assignment, stating my package was sent to 5 bases, but I could not be told the names of the bases. Why is this? That's a great question. So that's actually a result of kind of a partnership between the medical component and EFMP assignments. So reason being is it's multifaceted, though. I will say that. I know for Colonel Hoyt, you can always talk on the medical side for special needs coordinators and contact in between. We're really truly trying to make sure that we're not putting false hope in an individual. So if you see that we've racked and stacked and talked to your functional managers and said, hey, an airman has asked for X, Y, and Z bases, and can you provide support at one of these locations or more of these locations, and they're able to maybe manning-wise support your number 1 and number 2 preference, that's of course the ones that you're going to want. The problem is the other ones that are on the list, we've seen a very large number in our history where airmen will actually call out, airmen and spouses call out to those locations and push against a positive travel recommendation.
Yep.
Meaning they will actually have their leadership call and say, hey, we need you to deny travel, which is the term we don't really use anymore, but say we want you to say that we can't come there. So it's...
Or you can't support our needs. That recently happened.
Yeah, so undue influence is something that we really are protecting against, only because it also, everybody's task saturated right now, everybody across the Air Force, and we know that, and we are too as well. So we're trying to make sure that it's not to avoid any type of transparency. That's not it at all. Matter of fact, we wish it was an area that we were able to provide that level of transparency. Just right now, we're not able to because we have had so many airmen that have pushed against that when we have had those options out there for everybody else. So,
and to be fair to the career functional manager, they're the ones that identify those locations that have a need for the sponsor's qualifications and a slot available for that. That has nothing to do with our decision. We coordinate directly with the career functional for your sponsor's AFSC. So, yeah, just know that too, that we have no influence over which bases are populated. That comes from an outside source, and then our role in medical is to simply shoot out the packages to say, hey, can any of you support this?
Absolutely. And so for the EFMP assignment side, remember, we're keeping in mind when you come and you raise your hand and say, hey, AFPC, I need your help. I got this, and the gaining base says they can't support me. And I need to get my assignment changed or canceled, and we're looking for those 5 bases. We're always going to ask, can your requested locations be considered? What does Manning look like there? But it's still not, unfortunately, a case where we are able to say you absolutely are going to go to one of those requested locations. Because of the fact we still have the requirement here in our organization to man and manage our AFSCs, Air Force Specialties, across the globe. So that is still the business that we're in. I know I'm retired, and so you're not retired. And obviously Sandra's civil service full term. So, and we've all served, and so we know that commitment is 100% keeping airmen exactly where they need to be. So we've got to keep our focus on that too as well. Absolutely, when we can do it, and let me tell you, it's so much easier for us to say yes than to say no, 100%. But we do have to, and we want to try to manage that expectation to say, sometimes we're not. So holding off on that, dangling a carrot that we may not be able to deliver, that is important to us too as well. So, okay, I think I beat that one to death. So let me move on to my last one on this one. All right, I submitted my package last week. How long will it be before I get a response? Usually people wait a day, so I'm happy with a week when they start asking. I'm just teasing. All right, so it depends because this could be actually twofold. I kid, kind of. So it could be somebody asking for, and I believe this was in regards to an EFMP assignment. And if that's the case, it was, our average timeline is 4 to 6 weeks. That's kind of the high end of things that we look at. 4 to 6 weeks is the average processing because we do go through that process of going out to the 5 locations and making sure that we match against one that Manning supports and medical supports. If we don't get a match where both support, then we have to go back to the functional and go through that process again, get new locations and get them screened. So that can take a little bit longer. However, that is the normal timeline. And for you, for FDI, what's your normal? So switching over gears from an EFMP assignment to family member travel screening,
Yep.
if they've gotten an assignment and now they're going through the screening process as with a normal PCS, what's your FMTS processing time?
So again, that's a really good question because it really also depends when the sponsor brings their paperwork in.
Right.
And so that's kind of the starting point where families and sponsors often feel a delay in getting their paperwork back when we haven't actually received it yet. So sometimes they've been notified and it'll take them a month or two before they even come into our office, and now you're 1 month closer to your PCS. So it's very important that as soon as you or your sponsor gets an assignment, that you come immediately, just in case it takes an unusual amount of time to get a response back from the gaining base or multiple bases if you get a non-travel recommendation. But for CONUS assignments, we typically, so we ask that it's within 7 days. We are averaging at about 5 days.
That's great.
And for our OCONUS assignments, we give them 14 days, and we're averaging about 8 to 9 days. Now, there's some time in between there, obviously, where once the gaining location receives it, they do have time to, and we can't really manage how much time they need to take in order to find a way to get to yes so your family can get there. So they're reaching out not only in the community, but also surrounding other departments. So like if you're going over to Ramstein and you're actually assigned to Stuttgart, they're going to be coordinating with the Army side of the house to make sure they can support too. So it really is a lot of pieces involved, and ultimately we want to get to yes, and we are trying many ways to help families get to yes.
Absolutely. No, that's fabulous. Okay. All right, let me switch over. Family support. I promise we're not trying to leave you out, Miss Sandra. I promise. Okay, so we're preparing to PCS in May. What can our EFMP Family Support Coordinator do to make this process easier for our family? It's a good question.
Yeah. Well, first of all, congratulations on your new assignment. And I would say to make things a little bit easier, of course, first of all, I want to say that you don't have to go into the Airmen and Family Readiness Center to meet with your EFMP FS coordinator. You can actually be assessed over the phone, so telephonically, or maybe they'll even set up a Facebook or a FaceTime,
Nice.
FaceTime Live or Skype with you. So we do that oftentimes just to be able to service families so they don't have to make the trip in. So when you make contact with your coordinator, and as I mentioned before, there are 99 coordinators throughout the Air Force, so at about 78 installations. Some coordinators are going to be 2 or more at centers, and those are our larger installations. But when you make that contact with them, or maybe they'll even make contact with you because you are showing up on their monthly Q code roster as it gets closer time for you to leave. But they can assess your needs by conducting what we call the Family Needs Assessment. They will make you aware of the congressionally mandated
Yes.
services plan, which we've been talking a whole
That's
lot
right.
about recently. And so they'll sit down and just kind of find out what your needs are. What are the community resources that you're looking for? And
Perfect.
you probably, if you don't have those resources in place for you at the location where you're currently located, they will talk about that with you. And then they can also conduct a warm handoff from your losing installation to your gaining installation to have some resources available to you upon your arrival. And one thing that we're really proud of in Airmen and Family Readiness, EFMP Family Support was added to, actually, it was a year ago this month, actually. So added to the virtual out processing checklist. It's now a mandatory item. So all members leaving, even if you're not really familiar with what we do in Airmen and Family Readiness, you will have to either stop over or make contact with that coordinator. And so, and then they can, again, just lay out those community resources available. But I will say that all of our installations were approved for adult events and camps, so they'll talk to you about those sorts of things that are actually funded by Air Force. So it's adult education, kind of balanced with resources and also some fun events for the family. And so that's just to name a few. I can go on, but you need to contact your EFMP coordinator, not to be confused with the special needs coordinator out of the MTF. And so, and they'll line up all of those services for you.
I think it's really important that you mentioned that it's included on the out processing checklist, because so often we hear from families that say they have no idea about services available or what resources they have at their fingertips. And if we can get every family to at least check in and ultimately check out of Airmen and Family Readiness, they're going to get the information whether they're arriving on station or departing to their gaining location. So I think it's a really good piece so that families fully understand what is available and can also help transition to your gaining location.
Right, because if you don't make contact, a lot of times you're just not familiar. I think
And
oftentimes,
busy and
right,
chaos.
right, and even as a member, you know, if you don't want to stop in, at least let your family members know that these services are available to them, because we've heard at some of the summits that we've conducted that families are not even familiar with Airmen and Family and just don't know about the Airmen and Family coordinator, the FS coordinator that's available. And so there's a lot going on, and you definitely want to know about the services plan, again, that's congressionally mandated, where they can set up like goals and objectives for your family to help you move forward positively through the EFMP process.
And I will share, and this is actually probably a little bit embarrassing for me to admit, that as I was getting ready to retire, one of my children had severe needs that needed to be managed with a case manager on the medical side. And if I would have known the resources that, or educated myself on the resources that both medical and family support could offer, which they did offer to me as I was getting ready to retire and come back to San Antonio, I would have set myself up so much better for each PCS, because they were, both my kiddos were EFMP their almost their whole lives. But I regret that one thing about each PCS, because it's, I look back and think, man, if that would have made life so much easier.
That was so stressful.
It was so stressful, and trying to get plugged in each time, and when we've got in place a team. So I think that's one of the reasons we are all so passionate about what we do, because we want you to know what we know, and what I know now. But and so it's one of those things where I have no problem, and I have no shame, so I have no problem admitting it. But that is one of my regrets, is not getting plugged in sooner. So that is the perfect time, whether you're coming in or going out, is to get plugged in at Family Readiness, because you guys will make sure to refer over to the right place to get them plugged in. So perfect. Yeah.
You know, one thing I want to mention, and we've heard this you know, a lot. Families feel very alone, you know, at this time. And so you're not alone. You're not
No.
alone. Not with 99 coordinators out there and plenty of support groups that are actually established right there in the Airmen and Family Readiness Center for our families. So you can even link up with families who are going through the very same thing and, you know, partner up as you go through all of this. And then there's also just a cadre of individuals on the base that will also stand to assist you, like our school liaison officers. We have school
yes,
liaison
yeah.
officers on all of our installations. So if it's a school issue that you're dealing with, or you need to go, get more information on going into an IEP meeting, those school liaison officers can work with our FS coordinators to get you the services needed.
And they are
So,
wonderful.
they
I've had
are,
some
they
wonderful
are.
experiences with school liaison officers, so that's just me saying that, so love you. Okay, all right, we'll move on to the next one. All right, so if I was accepted for a CONUS Equal Plus assignment, which for everybody that's not familiar, that's like a special duty I volunteered for, but I was denied for EFMP reasons, can I still accept the assignment? I'm gonna do just a quick point of clarification, because that word denied comes up a lot. And there's technically not a denial processed with anybody's assignment when it comes to these. There's a travel recommendation, and I know you touched on it a little bit. Do you want to touch on that really quick before we go on to answering the whole shebang, or you're going to actually answer this one, I think, aren't you?
We can do both.
Oh,
yes,
that's
yes.
a twofer.
So yes, you can still accept the assignment. Just like I said in the previous question, the assignments will always belong to the sponsor until they request otherwise via the virtual MPF. That being said, in CONUS, yes, absolutely, you can accept your assignment. If there is a non-travel recommendation to a CONUS assignments, you still have the option to bring your family because you're American and can travel where you want. But we want to make sure you have all the information you need on the front end before you go there to make sure that that's where you really want to bring your family if by chance the closest care for your family member is 100 miles away and they need to go 4 times a week or 4 times a month. And so, you know, we want to be sure that we're able to determine if it's going to be a hardship, you know, and that's also what we take into consideration for a non-travel recommendation. So, but yeah, again, OCONUS, totally different thing.
Yes.
Lots of hardships if you decide to go without a recommendation for travel.
Absolutely. One of the things that we're going to throw up here on the screen for you to reference is this next question: what options do I have if my family is denied travel? And so you should be seeing the chart that talks about family member options or options available to airmen when there's a travel not recommended, or what we call a service non-availability notice provided. And it just really breaks it down for categorically if an airman's a volunteer versus a non-volunteer. So you kind of just use this to look and see where you are and where your situation is, and it provides you just an overview. Now, keep in mind, this is just a visual reiteration of AFI 362110, which is total force assignments, and we can't put everything on a slide. So every situation and every family is different, so we probably have somebody who's way outside the lines, and we've got to look at some situations as exceptions to policy, and we are more than happy to do that. So this is just kind of a basic guideline that we use, and this is what the norm is. Anything beyond that, we do a lot of exceptions. We do a lot and spend a lot of time coordinating. What do you think about this? What about this situation? This family is dealing with this. And so we do a lot of consultations.
Our senior medical advisors.
Yes,
yeah.
Absolutely. So keep that in mind as you're going through there. So, but we do want you making educated decisions, and that is part of the process. So refer back to that, but also refer back to the reference, which is 362110 as far as the official answer. But if you don't, if you aren't comfortable with that and your MPS is not able to help you, or your special needs coordinator, please reach out, because we'd be more than happy to walk you through that process. So pressing on, how do I submit an appeal to my travel not recommended notice? So that, again, that service not availability notice, which could be called a travel not recommended, and that one's actually going to be over to you, Colonel Hoyt. So
yes, once you get, if you receive a letter of travel not recommended, you can just bring it straight to the EFMP office, so that if you decide you want to appeal, which is one of your options, and actually we should maybe cover just briefly the options that they have. And again, the MPS can totally help you out with exactly what's available to you.
Go for it.
But you've got a few options if you have a non-travel recommendation. You can appeal it, and what that means is if you have information that wasn't submitted on the first application, you have 21 days to get that new information and resubmit it for reconsideration. That often is helpful. And then you can also request cancellation of your assignment and request a reassignment. If your child or family member is at a critical juncture in care, you actually can request a deferment up to 12 months.
Right.
So, and there's more. So, and just so you know, the Air Force is the only one who gives you this many options.
Absolutely.
The Air Force. So just keep that in mind. We try not to chokehold any sponsor based on their career field. They do have options, and if your sponsor's not watching this, make sure you tell him so he gets educated on what is available to you and your family.
Or she.
Or she, sorry, yes.
No, that's perfect, and I'm glad you circled back to that, because it is really important, and it's not always just about what do I want to cancel. It's about what are my other venues I can go down.
Right,
so, because sometimes that deferment, I need to stay in place. That's the best thing for the family. So definitely check those out and make sure that if you have questions on it. And we've done some pretty in-depth videos too as well. If you go out there to our YouTube channel on the AFPC Public Affairs page, you'll also see a breakdown where we really go more in depth on each one of our areas of expertise and subject matters. So you can watch what we're really talking about and really get more familiar with why we have the options the way that we have them set up for airmen and what services are provided by Airmen and Family and medical's process. So I definitely recommend to kind of poke around on the Facebook page and hit the links and link over to those YouTube channels, because it's got some really good information in there. Especially for our airmen and families that are out at geographically separated units and things along those lines too as well. So, okay,
Before you
Oh,
go
go
on,
ahead.
Kim, I just thought when you said GSUs, or the geographically
ma'am.
Yeah.
separated units, our EFMP coordinators will travel out to
Oh, yeah.
GSUs
That's right.
if need be. If we have a large number of EFMP families located at a GSU, maybe they should be
Right.
checking anyway, but if there's someone out there and you make that phone call to your closest Airmen and Family Readiness Center, we've had folks, take a team of folks out there just to service our families. So again, you are not
Right.
alone. We have not forgotten about you. And
I love
so
that.
I think sometimes families are just not really aware of the services that we offer and the reach, I think, that we have.
No, that's
So,
perfect.
And the first sergeant can help coordinate that as well,
Absolutely.
especially if they're tracking all of
Absolutely.
the amount of exceptional family members.
Absolutely. And I don't remember if we talked about, I don't think we did. Who's the waiver authority for a travel not recommended notice?
Well, it's a twofold, another
Okay,
twofold.
there we go.
So first, it has to do with if your first if your first application received a non-travel recommended, then your first level is that MTF who gave that non-travel recommendation.
Right.
And you would process that through your local EFMP medical office to say that you want to do the appeal. And so upon those situations, if it comes back again, it goes to the MAGCOM for review. And so at that point, the MAGCOM is the approval authority. But then on the flip side, if you're wanting to appeal or actually submit a waiver to the travel not recommended because you want command sponsorship if you're going overseas, then certainly you want to request that waiver through the assignments process. And I recommend you read Total Force Assignments on that one, 36-2110. It's going to tell you exactly what to do when you need a waiver. But that's really more for the OCONUS ones.
And that is one that we've had some major discussions about lately, especially when it comes to non-command sponsored dependents and things along those lines. So it's a very sticky point, especially on the education side. So there are some exceptions, I guess, if you will, but and when I say it's extremely limited, it's extremely limited. So we will never say never, but as far as what services or what level, not only Air Force leadership but also DODEA are willing to sign up for and put a child at risk or a dependent at risk, it's that's their mitigating factor. So, but we can walk off through everything to make sure that you're fully informed before we press forward with anything and provide a recommendation. So that's what we're here for. So absolutely. All right, I am going to switch it over to where can I find an EFMP support group? And I think you touched on this one a little bit earlier too, didn't you, Sandra, about with other EFMP families?
I did.
Okay.
So to find an EFMP support group, of course, your first contact should be to your EFMP FS coordinator.
Right.
And you may find out about your coordinator as you get enrolled in the program through the MTF or the medical treatment facility. The folks there may refer you over to the coordinator. If you're just recently enrolled, they should get you signed up for the new installation orientation that's been rolled out at all of our installations. You're going to find some standardization in that orientation. And so they'll talk about, each of us are kind of represented locally, so medical, assignments, family support at the orientation. And you'll find out about those support groups that are unique to your installation, because we do get a roster from the MTF, so the special needs coordinator, to kind of list some of the major diagnoses or the main diagnoses on each installation, so that programming can be set up specifically for you. So if there's a large number of, say, children on that installation with autism, you may find that you'll have an autism support group. It's not going to be the same across the Air Force, because those services are set up based on the community that you're in and the resources that are located on and off the installation.
Absolutely.
But overarching for the orientation, there is a lot of standardization, like you said.
Yes.
Right.
And that was a challenge we were running into. We would receive phone calls and complaints that each base gave them different information. And so when it comes to the assignments process, your local MPS person is going to be briefing about everything you need to know as an
Right.
EFMP family member or sponsor about the assignments piece of it. And at the same time, following whatever the rotation is, medical is going to tell you everything you need to know about the medical process and screening and so forth. And same with FS. So you're going to get like a trifecta of information so that you have all the information you need. Because again, like we said, some people say they had never heard of EFMP. And when they find out, sometimes it's a little late in the process, and then it causes delays in the screening. So we want to catch you as soon as we can on the front end to give you that information. So I recommend you go back and talk to your MTF or your family support coordinator or your MPS to say, hey, when's the next orientation?
Absolutely.
I want to be there.
And actually, the orientation should be offered at least quarterly
Right.
on the installation, on every single installation, maybe more frequently. It could be monthly, just depending on folks being enrolled there.
Sure.
And then also, if you don't get to go and actually sit in an orientation, there are the YouTube videos.
Yeah.
So we all have YouTube videos out there to talk about the services that we offer. And it's really very much similar to everything that you'll find out in an orientation. But I think if you go to sit in the orientation, you're going to find out a whole lot more, because many of the centers and bases do have extra briefers that come in. Folks from outside the installation may come in and talk to the population there. So it's a good way to be in contact with the professionals in your area.
And then you have that face-to-face networking with your local points of contact, and you get that supplemental information about, local folks that you'll be able to network with. So it's really great. We're really excited about that and really looking forward to the feedback.
Right.
We'll be looking at it about 6 months in, so we're getting ready to look at it here coming up in March. For our first set of reviews. So if you've already been to that orientation, we definitely like to hear from you too, because we're looking for any ways that we need to look at honing it in a little bit or maybe tailoring it a little bit more. But we're definitely looking forward to feedback from families that have been through the class already. So it's going to be good. We're excited.
We are.
Okay. All right. Let's see where we're at, ladies. I don't know how much time we actually have left. We've actually got about 10 minutes. Okay, perfect. All right, let's talk about TRICARE. What is considered local area when services are not available in the military treatment facility? And that's a great question and a loaded one at that.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So I always preface TRICARE questions with, I am not a TRICARE SME or a subject matter expert. But what we do know is TRICARE does have their definition of what a local area means, but that's for a broad range of reasons that may or may not pertain to EFMP. We also know that wing commanders also have the discretion to decide what the local area is based on personnel recall and so forth. But some bases are really focused around about 50 miles. I think we all kind of agree that 50 miles is probably good enough. Anything over can sometimes be a hardship. Now, there are some bases, especially our remote ones, Cannon, for example, they have expanded theirs to 100 miles because they are so remote.
Right.
But again, we take every family's situation into consideration and make that determination whether or not it would be a hardship for you. So, for example, if your child has, just throw it out there, a child psychiatry appointment that is once a week and it's 55 miles away, that's 4 times a month. That might be a hardship on your family. But if your child has a follow-up child psychiatry once every 6 months, we don't know that that's really as much of a hardship and that you could probably follow up with that, barring any other additional information you might provide us. So it really is based on your circumstances. We get a lot of times where this particular member or this family member has a bunch of siblings and they all have their own unique needs.
Right.
And one may only have one specialist required once a year and another one might have 4 within a year. So we take the whole family picture into consideration. So.
And that's really the only way to look at it. And that's what here, even for us, when we're looking at it for the assignment perspective, we are looking at the totality of the circumstances. So we know that when you're looking at it from the medical side, when it's the regular assignment processing, the family member travel screening, that's what your SGHs are looking at, your chief of medical staff. For that initial screening. But when we're looking at it too from the assignment perspective for an actual EFMP reassignment and somebody asks and says, hey, I got to move because of, I'm getting seen once every month, for 55 miles away, we are looking at those other factors and those variables that are out there, how many kids you got under 3, what are their schedules, are they special needs too, what's going on with parents, because what we don't know is what we don't know. So that's why we're always going to ask airmen and families to please give us all the information. So a lot of times as airmen, we hold on to information because we don't necessarily want to share everything, but I will tell you that's probably the worst way to get it approved. We really, truly need to know everything because it doesn't put us in a good situation unless we know your story, right? So that's really the best way for me to describe it. So let us know everything's going on. It's a tight circle here, so we're not sharing information. Everything's locked down and we don't give out any information. So please share that information with us so that we can be able to make an educated decision and one that's going to be best for your family. So, all right, I think we got time for one more questions, ladies, and then I think we're going to be out, but that doesn't mean we can't carry over the conversation on Facebook. So I'm going to switch over, and I need to find one more for Miss Sandra because I feel like I'm not being fair to her. So
Well, I have so much to share.
I know you do. All right, how about this one? How about can the Air Force Family Support Center EFMP coordinator help an Army family? We don't live on base. That's a great question.
Right, that's a very good question.
Absolutely.
Thank you for asking that. And that was one I wanted to touch on actually before this closes out. In Airmen and Family Readiness, we've talked a lot about what we do, of course, for assignments and medical for active duty Air Force members. But the Airmen and Family Readiness Center EFMP program is all encompassing. We serve everyone, all DoD ID card holders, to include our sister service population. Because a lot of times we have a lot of joint communities now. In fact, I would say almost every community now is purple. And so when we have, it's not just Air Force, we have Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Guard, Reserve at those installations. We serve all of them. So if you are an Army family and the Airmen and Family Readiness Center on your Air Force installation is closest to you, even if you don't live on base, we will service you there. And that actually is the same for all of the services. If we have an Air Force family out there and you're located closest to a Navy base, you can go into that location and they will service you there. So it really doesn't matter when it comes to the family centers across the Department of Defense. And just, again, simply go in, talk to your coordinator, and they will set you up. They can do that needs assessment.
Right.
They can do the congressionally mandated services plan that I talked about earlier. And then you're also invited to attend those adult events and the children camps that we have set up throughout the year. And again, they'll give you more information when you get there, but Airmen and Family Readiness is really the first line of contact, kind of the face of EFMP, if you will. So stop in, check us out, and we will set you up and kind of line things up for your family where you are not alone in EFMP.
And just to kind of tag on, sorry, I just wanted to add this in because it is joint service related. Coming real soon, we're really just waiting on the DoD to come down,
Yes.
but coming very soon, you will be able to fill out cross-service forms. So if you are, they're all DoD forms, okay? And so the best part about that is if you are an airman and you're located closer to an Army base, you don't have to go to the next close Air Force base to get your screening done. You can go to that Army base and they're going to take care of you the same way we would, and vice versa. So that's coming real soon. I think that's a huge win for the Air Force, well, for DoD, frankly, that we're all going to be taking care of each other as we would our own.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And it's definitely a win for the other services too, because a lot of them like our level. Nothing wrong with the other services, don't take me wrong, but we're a friendly group, so our extensions out in the field are too. So.
And I want to just add before we end today, the warm handoffs. I think those are really important because if you are an Army family or a family from another service and you're getting ready to even go back to an Army installation as you get ready to PCS or what have you, the coordinator can provide a warm handoff for you as well to that next installation. And I think that's so important that we are working very close because our communities now are mostly joint.
Right. Yeah, that's how everything is purple.
Yes.
Joint is purple. Okay. Well, let's continue the conversation in the chat area since we have to get off now. And do me a favor, and if you don't want to put everything out there and you're a little more, you would like to stay in the behind the scenes, then send us a message. So we'll be on there, and please don't hesitate to reach out, even if it's after this is all said and done with. That's what we're here for. So share the page, please. Share the information. Feel free to poke around the page and look and see what we've posted previously and save it and share it as well, too. So we really thoroughly appreciate you tuning in today. We appreciate your participation. And we just really thoroughly appreciate you being part of EFMP for Air Force. So thanks so much, and we will see you next time.
Thank you.